But there's clear parallels. Hell, I could make an argument, even if that wasn't his intent remotely, there's actually clear parallels between those two. How Professor X is looking for more world coming together, and Malcolm X is more a divider. There's clear parallels, even if it's not intended by the artist, even if it wasn't intended by Stan Lee. But I think it's pretty safe to assume it is. But let's see your sources. This Organized Chaos video is brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you. Hello again. We are doing something different this time because I'm doing a Stan Lee editorial coming out soon. And I thought I should do some research and see what some people say about Stan Lee and see, how truthful some of it is. Maybe get some of his own words. And I thought, hey, why don't you just do a video on the research? I'll look over some of this stuff, and some of this stuff, we will be looking over cringe content. We will also be looking over some Stan Lee interviews. I just thought it'd be a fun thing to share. I think this research is going to be interesting for me, and I think you guys will be interested in watching this research too. So, yes. I was interested in what Stan Lee thought on social justice issues, because lots of people like to misquote him and say he's not for social justice issues, which always seemed contrary to my perception of the man. Some of the stuff I read from his soapboxes, which I have looked up. But yes, let's see some videos here. We're going to look up what Stan Lee thinks of social justice. First we're going to click on this AMC thing. This looks interesting. Stan Lee on the idea for X-Men.
I had already done Spider-Man with the Hulk and Fantastic Four, and my publisher said, give me another book, Stan. We're going strong. Let's do some more. Well, in order to get a new superhero, you have to think of what his or her power is. That's not too hard, but you have to figure out how did they get that power, and that's a little difficult. I can't have them all be bitten by radioactive spiders. So I had already given them their powers, and then it hit me. What if they're mutants? What if they were born that way? I thought that was brilliant, and I ran into my publisher, and I told him about the characters. And I said, well, make them mutants, and we'll call the book The Mutants. And he said, no, Stan, that's no good, because our readers wouldn't know what a mutant is. And I said, you don't have enough respect for our readers. They will know, or else they'll learn by reading the story. He said, no, I don't like the name The Mutants. So I had to think of something else, because he was the boss. So I thought, after a while, each of them has an extra power. Maybe I'll call them the X-Men. That could sound kind of dramatic. So I ran back to him, and I said, okay, how about if we call them the X-Men? And he said, oh, that's great. And as I walked out of his office, I thought, if a reader wouldn't know what a mutant is, how will he know what an X-Man is? But I wasn't about to make an issue of it. I had my title, and that's why the leader, I called him Professor Xavier, because it began with an X, and that tied in with the X-Men and so forth. I've always tried to do our stories so that it didn't matter if you were of the white race, the black race, the brown race, or whatever. So social issues I try to get in the background or underlaying a plot, but never to the point of letting it interfere with the story or hitting the reader over the head.
And you'll see actually lots of people attempted to do it more subtly, but then that's how you end up with situations like The Matrix, where now the right's completely taken it over, and that's why you get creators being less subtle now. If you're gonna misread it, that's gonna happen. So, okay, the second video here is Young Ripa. We got Eric July on his thoughts. Okay, so this is gonna be him misinterpreting that entire section. Okay, well, let's go.
Yo, what's up? This is gonna be a very quick video. Didn't even get ready for it. I don't even have my hat on, as you can see. But check this out. This is a gem. I tweeted this out, and I want everybody to listen to what Stan Lee has to say. And then I'm going to give you my thoughts here in a little bit. Let's take a look.
I've always tried to do our stories so that it didn't matter if you were of the white race, the black race, the brown race, or whatever. So social issues I try to get in the background or underlaying a plot, but never to the point of letting it interfere with the story or hitting the reader over the head.
Oh, ain't that something? And then you can see this over at AMC. This is an interview that they did with the great Stan Lee. I mean, he gets it, obviously. He's the OG. But this is what and I know a lot of others, but certainly I've been saying. Like, this isn't a difficult thing to understand. The problem with current mainstream comics, as well as comic book film, more so TV, and the crossover, is that writers it's like they're incapable of writing a story and being subtle with anything. It's blue check mark leftist.
Well, that's what I just said. They used to try to do that, and it kind of failed on them. You have lots of, like, the Wachowskis. Wachowskis never intended Red Pill to be taken by the right, but it is, because they were too subtle with it. So when you misinterpret their stuff in a way that the artists don't like, the backlash will be the artist will be less subtle with it.
Like you see on Twitter, in show and TV form, and certainly in the comic books, are so on the nose. Why does Captain Marvel have to tell you they're going to see this? She has to save this chick from this 7-foot misogynist and literally tell you that in the dialogue, with Nuclear Man popping up out of nowhere inexplicably. Why does West Coast Avengers have this?
It's funny because I just explained why, because you guys misinterpret it. So if you're going to keep on misinterpreting it, they're going to get more blatant with what they're saying.
Black chick saying that, hey, I'm a black chick and a surfing champion and a small successful business owner.
What, did they actually have a line of dialogue where they say that? Maybe. I don't know. But like I said, when you misinterpret the artist's intention, they're going to get more blunt with their intention in future things. That's how that works.
I'm a superhero because of that. Like, type of shit. Like, that's in the dialogue. Why is that there? You know what I'm saying? So that's what, for one, the X-Men, and this is what why I was going down this rabbit hole. I just did this video you can watch talking about how it's a complete myth that people try to pin social justice on X-Men. You can go check that video there. I'm not going to go too much into detail.
How's that a myth? Because Stanley listen, man, he said he tries to keep it in the background, but he puts it there. He's not hiding it. So it's actually there. So the idea that it's a myth is bullshit. You just played the video where he said he puts it in.
So with that, but this is all that we've been saying, people. It's not.
All we're saying is that be more subtle, so we can misinterpret it for our own means.
Not that comics can't be political. It's not that comics can't address certain social issues.
Well, that's the thing. You guys scream, and I still haven't heard the politics behind woman lead character, or the politics behind gay character, or the politics behind a black character. I haven't heard these arguments. You guys scream politics just because these elements exist in a book. And in my opinion, that's not even political. Those are just things that exist. Oh, there's a trans character in Baymax. Isn't that political? No, because trans people exist, so representing them in Baymax doesn't seem like an issue to me.
It's saying what separates a good writer from a bad writer is they don't have to be on the nose, and something's going to have multiple metaphors and multiple interpretations.
That's why I just brought up. There's plenty of good writers who are having their stuff misinterpreted. Are you saying the Wachowskis are bad writers? I actually think they're pretty damn good writers. They're not flawless writers, but they're pretty fucking good writers. And a lot of their stuff's being misinterpreted by the right wing, and you can tell it's pissing them off.
Of it. So you can say that's sort of like what's happening here in society. It's also something like that's happening there. And you don't have to beat the user or the reader, the consumer, over the head with it. But current writers seem to be incapable of doing that, certainly when
Well, pick a lane. Is Stanley not covering social justice issues, or is he just doing it subtly? Because you seem to be saying there he's not doing it, but now you're saying he's doing it subtly. Dude, pick one. And that's the thing. Most of this stuff doesn't even, does it subtly. Like, the Rings of Power blow up. Everybody's freaking out over fucking diversity in Middle-earth. And that is, such a goddamn white show. It's ridiculous. There's so many white people in that show. And a little bit of diversity. You guys are talking about, oh my god, there's politics in Middle-earth. Since when? The little bit of diversity you have, they just act like normal people. Jesus.
When it comes to minority characters, they have to tell you this in a dialogue. They have to actually have an arc that deals specifically with this.
Well, it depends. If the writer wants to talk about that, then yes, they should have an arc and they should write about that. It depends what the story calls for.
But as the great Stan Lee said, if you guys care about inclusiveness, which is, that's a lazy, lame word. But his point was that he wanted to make comics that everybody of all different backgrounds could at least enjoy. Therefore, I wasn't trying to put these social issues at the forefront of the comic. I maybe put it in there underlying, but I would not put it at the
But it is in there. It is very much in there.
Forefront and try to build my character.
He didn't say he wouldn't do that. He just said that's the way he wrote.
Based on that. Or build an arc based on that.
He never said he wouldn't. He just said that's not how he did it.
You heard it from OG Stan Lee, so it's not just me saying it. Y'all be easy, man.
Wow, so essentially in this video, he proves why artists are being more blunt with their messaging. Because he's completely misinterpreting what Stan Lee said there for his own means. So yeah, if you're going to misinterpret what the artist wants, yeah, guess what? They're going to get more blunt next time. Stan Lee passes SJW's Celebrate. I've never heard of the Thinkery. What the heck is this? Almost 1 million views. Let's check it out.
Rip Stan Lee. I don't normally do videos about the deaths of celebrities.
Who is this guy? This guy's familiar as fuck. Is this Sargon of Akkad? Is that this guy's name, or is this somebody else? What is the Thinkery? Okay, yeah, no, there he is. So, yeah. This is a backup channel for Sargon of Akkad, I guess?
Celebrities or virtue signal about them on social media because I don't like virtue signaling. But with Stanley, I kind of feel like I did when Gary Gygax died. I'm actually really grateful for their work. I spent an awful lot of my youth enjoying content that Stanley made, and the same with Gary Gygax and D&D. So I'm sad to see this happen. As far as I'm aware, there aren't any real details yet. TMZ report that an ambulance rushed to Lee's Hollywood Hills home early Monday morning and he was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, and that's where he died. He had apparently suffered several illnesses over the last year or so and had a bout of pneumonia, had vision issues, things like this. He was 95 years old. In my opinion, that's a really good innings, and he has such an incredible life. And all the accounts I've heard about him personally is that he's amazing and lovely and gentle and kind and exceptionally creative. Stan was also what you would call a social justice ally, although clearly not an intersectional social justice ally. Stan was just an anti-racist. Let's read this thing that he wrote for one of his comics. Let's lay it right on the line. Bigotry and racism are among the deadliest social ills plaguing the world today. But unlike a team of costume supervillains, they can't be halted with a punch in the snoot or a zap from a ray gun. The only way to destroy them is to expose them, to reveal them for the insidious evils they really are. The bigot is an unreasoning hater, one who hates blindly, fanatically, indiscriminately. If his hang-up is black men, he hates all black men. If a redhead once offended him, he hates all redheads. If some foreigner beats him to a job, he's down on all foreigners. He hates people he's never seen, people he's never known, with equal intensity, with equal venom. Now, we're not trying to say it's unreasonable for one human being to bug another, but although anyone has the right to dislike another individual, it's totally irrational, patently insane to condemn an entire race, to despise an entire nation, to vilify an entire religion. Sooner or later we must learn to judge one another on our own merits. Sooner or later, if man is ever to be worthy of his destiny, we must fill our hearts with tolerance. For then, and only then, will we be truly worthy of the concept that man was created in the image of God, a God who calls us all his children. Pax est justitia, which I assume is Latin for peace and justice. Stan. While I think he might be slightly overstating the case here, and this is a bit hyperbolic, I agree with the spirit of what he's saying and the message that he's trying to get across. Racism is indeed a social ill.
Okay, so far Sargon here is giving what feels like an accurate, and I apologize if this isn't Sargon, just someone who sounds and looks exactly like Sargon. But he's giving an accurate feeling of Stan, and unlike him, I agree 100% with what Stan says here. Maybe not the God stuff at the end, not a theist at all, but yeah.
And it doesn't do you or anyone else any good to be consumed with hate. Even if someone has actually wronged you, there is a reason that all of the great religions throughout history emphasize forgiveness. It's not just for them, it's also for you. Shouldn't come as too much of a surprise.
Well, yeah, no, but he's not saying that. But he is saying we have to expose racism where it's at. He's not saying let it consume you.
To learn that Stan Lee was racist, homophobic, and accused of sexual harassment multiple times. He was creepy and underhanded. That doesn't mean he deserved the elder abuse he got, or that he deserved to die, but I'm not wasting any time mourning that bitch. Now the time, is it? Now's the time. You couldn't have done this yesterday. Now's the time. Stan Lee was a sexual harasser, but sure, send your broken heart emojis and sad faces. Really, was he? Naturally, if you take to Twitter and just search Stan Lee problematic, you find
I have not seen anything about this. Let's look it up and see if there's any merit to this. Vox is usually okay. Let's see here. Multiple nurses have accused Lee of sexually harassing them while they were caring for him. And another woman has alleged that he masturbated in front of her and groped her. And the source is the Daily Mail. It's not a great source. Comic book legend Stan Lee has been hit with several allegations of sexual assault, harassment, nurses. Oh, Daily Mail can reveal. Daily Mail. So the source for this is a right-wing publication. I think that needs to be established right away. Are there any extra sources besides Daily Mail? Daily Mail is not naming the company, as to do so would identify the women. Do we have someone besides Daily Mail digging this up? I would love someone that's not Daily Mail. Because if he is guilty of this, then yes, this is a big deal. But Daily Mail is a very sus publication. Just, yeah. Earlier this week, it emerged that someone stole $300,000 from him with a fraudulent check. I don't seem related. Little disappointed in Vox and just reporting something Daily Mail says. Is there something besides? The Guardian, published by Mail Online, that Stanley. What's Mail Online? Daily Mail. So he was accused of, it's suspicious, but it's like, I want something besides fucking Daily Mail reporting this. According to Daily Mail. So lots of people are just reporting on the Daily Mail article. So, yeah, and Daily Mail is a middle market tabloid, and it is banned as a source on Wikipedia. And as far as I can tell, they're the only ones. So what he is reporting on, SJW's getting upset about Stan Lee over oh shit, where did I jump to? He's reporting that SJWs are getting upset because Stan Lee is accused of sexual misconduct by a right-wing tabloid that cannot be accepted on Wikipedia, and I cannot find a source for sexual misconduct from anywhere else. It doesn't seem like any women have actually come out, which I get it. It's hard to come out as a woman when stuff like this happens. But it seems like Daily Mail is a very suspect source. They went to Daily Mail of all places to report this harassment. And it's a British thing. Stanley's American. Why'd they go to Daily Mail? This is super suspect. But now Sargon is getting upset because social justice people on here are upset that Stanley is being accused of sexual harassment. Most likely they're upset because they haven't looked up where this has come from. Because where this accusation has come from is very suspect. but it's an accusation started by the fucking right wing. I want to stress this. Daily Mail is a right-wing fucking source. So, oh my god. Let's blame the left for something the right wing started.
Was he? Naturally, if you take to Twitter and just search Stan Lee problematic, you find an awful lot of people who think that Stan Lee was some sort of terrible rapist, massive racist, and evil old white man. This is about the best you'll find on here. I don't want to hear anything about how Stan Lee is problematic right now. Yes, he may have done some bad shit, but without him, the characters we all know and love wouldn't be here. Yeah. Of course, when they're saying that Stan Lee is a racist, what they mean is they're complaining about the fact that Stan Lee doesn't think you should just blackwash every character he's ever made. Let us tell you why Stan Lee's comments on Spider-Man's ethnicity and sexuality are problematic. Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, what do all of these actors have in common? They're white, straight, and have all played the comic book character Spider-Man. Now this is no...
So, I bet you this is going to be about the article that misrepresents this quote, because I know this quote they're going to bring up. I bet you money I've heard this quote before, and they play the first half and get offended, and or sometimes they trump it, they cut off the second half. But let's see.
Coincidence, according to Spider-Man creator Stan Lee, this is how Spider-Man must always be, because Spider-Man just happens to have been a white kid. So the leaked emails from Sony revealed that Stan Lee wanted the character to be faithful to the character he had created for his comic book. The agreement stipulates that Spidey must be male and he doesn't torture, needlessly kill, use foul language, smoke, abuse alcohol, or have sex before the age of 16, according to the copies of the emails. More controversially, however, the agreement says that Spider-Man's alter ego, Peter Parker, must be Caucasian and heterosexual.
Well, here's an interesting quote from Stan Lee. I wanted them to be diverse. The whole underlying principle of the X-Men was to try to be an anti-bigotry story to show that there's good in every person. Oh, that's fun. God, I'm looking for this original thing. Okay, after a new set of leaked Sony emails reveals a restrictive set of rules for Spider-Man's on-screen persona, the character's creator Stan Lee has spoken out in support of the controversial stipulations. And it's worth noting that the Sony emails were stipulations that Sony had given Marvel to what Marvel has to do if they want to do a Spider-Man movie with them. The rule says that Peter Parker, Spider-Man's alter ego, should always be right. Doesn't bother Lee, according to an interview he gave to an entertainment website. I won't mind if Peter Parker had originally been black, a Latino, an Indian, or anything else, that he stay that way. But we originally made him white. I don't see any reason to change that. Lee is also in agreement with the requirement that Peter Parker's sexuality should remain as originally written, but is open to the idea of other homosexual comic book characters. I think the world has a place for gay superheroes, certainly, but I don't see any reason to change sexual proclivities. Jesus. Ugh. Proclivities of a character once they've already been established. I have no problem with creating new homosexual heroes. Lee was also keen to point out that his remarks had nothing to do with bigotry, but rather with staying true to his work. It has nothing to do with being anti-gay, or anti-black, or anti-Latino, or anything like that. Latino characters should say Latino, Black Panther should certainly not be Swiss. I just see no reason to change that, which was already established when it was easy to add new characters. I say create new characters the way you want to. Hell, I'll do it myself. Now, I will say, my issue with that is that new characters haven't taken hold like they used to. They just haven't. The most popular character Marvel's created in the past 20 years has been Miles Morales. Not even close. His comments follow news that Miles Morales, a mixed-race iteration of Spider-Man, will be replacing Peter Parker in the comics. Latest Spider-Man reboot is still in the process, with casting its lead, yes, a couple years ago. Tom Holland rumored to lead. Where is the second half of that quote? I have it in a previous video. I'll cut to a previous video, but he talked, essentially, there's this quote, and then he follows up this quote by actually saying, Marvel has a right to do with what these characters, what they want in the end of the day. These are kind of just my thoughts. But yeah, Marvel can do what they want. That was his conclusion, and I will cut to that clip here in a moment. Now go ahead and cut to that clip in the middle of this video.
Why? I imagine he stressed that the Black Panther must be African and the King of Wakanda. But if the situation couldn't get any worse, Stan Lee weighed in on the controversy. Lee addressed why Spider-Man's appearance should never change in an interview with Newsarama. I think the world is a place for gay superheroes, certainly. What a bigot. But again, I don't see any reason to change the sexual proclivities of a character once they've already been established. What a fucking racist! I have no problem with creating new homosexual superheroes. Okay, so Stan Lee holds exactly my position on the idea of like creating fictional works of art and fictional worlds and retaining a consistent canon within them, because that's all he's saying there. It has nothing to do with being anti-gay, anti-black, or anti-Latino or anything like that. Imagine the fact that he had to fucking say that. Imagine what he was being asked. For him to say, well, no, I'm not anti-gay or anti-black. It's just this hero is what this hero is. It's okay to be Spider-Man. Latino characters should stay Latino. The Black Panther should certainly not be Swiss. I called it. I just see no reason to change what has already been established when it's so easy to add new characters. I say create new characters the way you want to. Hell, I'll do it myself. And I'm sure he did. This is, of course, the
Well, I don't know if he's been making characters in a while. Okay, let's see if I can remember. Stan Lee, full quotes, diversity, black. Okay, I found it. Here's the full quote. So when asked about Donald Glover's campaign, this is from the Geek Twins. I haven't heard of it, but yeah, I've seen this quote. This is a genuine quote here. When asked about black actor Donald Glover's campaign to become Spider-Man, he said, "A lot of my Twitter followers have been saying that he ought to have a chance to audition for the role. So I tweeted back by saying, as far as I'm concerned, anybody should have a chance to audition for the role. I certainly think he should have a chance to audition. Stan Lee feels that any actor, black or white, should get to audition for the role as a superhero. He's also said, what I like about the costume is that anybody reading Spider-Man in any part of the world can imagine they themselves are under the costume. That's a good thing. But when asked about Sony email leaks that said Spider-Man has to be Caucasian, he said, I want mine if Peter Parker had originally been black, a Latino, or an Indian, or anything else, that he stay that way. But we originally made him white, and I don't see any reason to change that. He had the fan backlash has nothing to do with anti-black or anti-Latino or anything like that. Latino characters should stay Latino, Black Panther should certainly not be Swiss. I just see no reason to change that which has already been established when it's so easy to add new characters. I say create new characters the way you want it. Over the years, Lee's created hundreds of superheroes, so he feels it's easy to create great superheroes. So why do fans get upset Michael B. Jordan is So why do fans get upset about Michael B. Jordan as Spider-Man, but not Samuel Jackson as Nick Fury? We've already had Kingpin and Daredevil portrayed by a black man, where he was a white man in the comics. And we've had Nick Fury portrayed by a black man where he was white in the comics. But not that many people have seen those characters. Not that many moviegoers are familiar with them. Liad, everybody seems familiar with Spider-Man, so I say that it isn't that it's a racial issue, it just might be confusing to people. But that's a matter for the people at Marvel to take into consideration. So he's not saying you can't change it. He's just saying it might be a hard sell. That's his entire point. They always like to misread this quote. He's just saying it might be a hard sell to change it. That's all he is saying.
Problem. Clearly he doesn't understand the gravity of statements like that. While you might be the creator of Spider-Man, I have to say, Stan, that you were wrong here, and let me tell you why. Creating separate and frankly less popular characters, and that's the problem, when you need to represent another ethnicity solves nothing. In fact, it gives off the illusion like you are pushing race issues to the side, because they're not very popular. I mean, let's not have to bring up the great Donald Glover Spider-Man debacle of 2014. We're in a nation of change, just in case you didn't know. We are in the middle of a cultural revolution, Stan. Your white men stand in the way of our diversity. You know they have to go. You know wanting to stick to the established canon of characters you've created for a specific reason to tell a specific story.
I like how he's like half reading this article and half adding his own shit. Yeah, way to represent what they're saying, bro. Jesus Christ.
Story to a specific audience can get bent. Because we are here to craft the perfect world. And the perfect world doesn't involve straight white men. And if you're wondering why they're treating him like he's a rapist, it's because back in April of this year, he was accused of sexual misconduct. 95-year-old Stan Lee was accused of sexual misconduct. Whole life, no sexual misconduct allegations. 95 years old, he starts getting a bit randy. So according to a lawsuit, Maria Caballo has accused Stan Lee of assault, battery, violation of the Illinois Gender Violence
Ooh, this is something I haven't seen. So let's see what this is. This is ABC News. The Chicago area masseuse has accused former Marvel Comics editor Stan Lee of sexual misconduct, according to the lawsuit obtained by Los Angeles. Mario Cabala has accused Stan Lee of assault, battery, violation of Illinois Gender Violence Act, and emotional distress, and named his former assistant Max Anderson in a count of civil conspiracy stemming from 2 separate massage therapy sessions in 2017. Lawsuit states that during the first massage session, Lee fondled himself while lying face down and later began to moan and groan, which made Carvalho so uncomfortable that she ended the massage early and left. However, her employer and owner of therapy professionals asked that she return to Lee's hotel room and give him a second massage upon his request. According to the lawsuit, after 2 refusals, her employer called her for a third time and said that Lee had apologized and assured her there would be no further incidents, the lawsuit states. Fearing for her job, Carvalho returned to Lee's hotel room to give him a massage, during which he began to moan. According to the lawsuit, to great distance from him, she began to shiatsu massage, which can be performed with the feet, at which point Lee allegedly put his genitals against her foot. According to the lawsuit, after that, she claims immediately stopped the massage and left, the lawsuit states. Okay, so this seemed like a fairly passive massage style. So this is one accusation, but it's not good. This sounds bad. All right, what's your take on it, dude?
Violence Act and emotional distress, and named his former assistant Max Anderson in a count of civil conspiracy stemming from 2 separate massage therapy sessions in a Chicago hotel room. We're supposed to believe that a 95-year-old man beat up a healthy woman. I don't think that.
That wasn't the accusation. He was just very inappropriate with her. He didn't rape her, but he was definitely inappropriate, what it sounds like. He didn't beat her up. Why are you misrepresenting what the text literally says?
I don't think he probably did. Because what's happened is that Stan Lee is a victim of the Me Too movement. For a long...
Oh my god, he's gonna be one of those guys who's like, oh my god, everybody's innocent who's accused in the Me Too movement. Yeah, most of them aren't. Yeah, I'm sure there's some innocent guys. Maybe Stan is innocent. One accusation is... It's bad. She has details. That's usually very bad. But it is one accusation. I still have to discredit that Daily Mail thing because it's Daily Mail. And we have nothing else from there. This seems far more credible.
Long time, I was afraid to ask anyone to help me hold Mr. Lee accountable and how he treated me. He is rich and famous. I am not. After seeing the other woman fight to be treated with dignity and respect, I decided, me too. Lee's attorney didn't immediately respond, but he did tell the Chicago Tribune that he was shocked by the allegations, which he denied. The attorney also said that he was not aware of a criminal investigation and said the allegations might be part of a shakedown. The guy is 95. I don't think he would do that. I would have said, the guy is 95. I don't think he could do that. So this is already gross.
So he's 95 and he can't masturbate? I think he probably can.
And I just want to say, with Ruth Bader Ginsburg falling over, cracking 3 ribs, and having to go to hospital, I didn't sit there going, well, I hope she dies because she's a feminist. I hope she dies because then Trump gets to elect another Supreme Court justice. When your body gets to this kind of age, you get really frail. It doesn't take much to really hurt you.
You didn't even read the fucking article. Jesus Christ. He didn't assault. There's different forms of sexual assault. You don't have to pin the woman to necessarily sexually assault her. Masturbating in front of her when it's unwelcome is definitely sexually assault. Is definitely a sexual assault. Especially, just doing it by itself is sexual assault. But when there's a power dynamic issue, it makes it so much worse. And in the Stan Lee case, that's a big issue. Because, he's not going to find a woman that has a equal power dynamic to him. Period.
I really have trouble believing that Stan Lee was capable of actually assaulting someone.
Oh my god. It's not like he beat her up, dude. It's not.
Sounds pretty damn ridiculous. It sounds like it's the Me Too movement just running wild as usual. But either way, I do think it's pretty...
Well, that video started out good, but that got cringe really fucking fast. I mean, holy shit. Alright, we're back to Young Ripa as number 3. We'll see how many more. I want to get to this Geeks and Gamers. X-Men, not social justice. Let's see what Young Ripa Eric July here has to say about
it. It is not a secret that the advocates of social justice when it comes to comics are very dishonest people. They are leeches that exist to only hijack subcultures and fandom, and honestly, they do a great job of this. But when it comes to the old social justice...
I hate to say it, but, seriously, Source, yeah, how dare comic books be about social justice when we're primarily dealing with lots of morality tales for children? How dare that deal with social justice? You don't want morality tales to have social justice, and that seems like, honestly, the perfect venue for social justice.
Justice has always been a part of comics thing. The go-to cliche that they use is referencing the X-Men as an example of this. There are usually 2 claims that are often misunderstood, very misunderstood, surrounding this idea. 1, they say that the X-Men was flat out created to be social justice, and 2, the Magneto and Professor X, that whole conflict, they were created to represent MLK and Malcolm X. Both of these are either partially false or entirely false depending on the narrative. Notice these claims are hardly ever backed up with anything other than some headline of an article. First and foremost, no, Stan Lee did not create Magneto and Professor X with the sole intent of having them be analogies for MLK and Malcolm X.
I have never ever seen an interview where it was said that that was the sole intent. But there's clear parallels. Hell, I could make an argument, even if that wasn't his intent remotely, there's actually clear parallels between those two. How Professor X is looking for more world coming together, and Malcolm X is more a divider. There's clear parallels, even if it's not intended by the artist, even if it wasn't intended by Stan Lee. But I think it's pretty safe to assume it is. But let's see your sources.
They weren't even specifically created to represent the civil rights era. If you read the X-Men when it first came out, it's not even remotely analogous to the civil rights era. So it makes sense as to why Stan Lee said in an interview that the metaphor was given to him more so as a gift. It fell in his lap. He didn't specifically create it.
Well, yeah. Essentially, he came up with this idea of, he didn't want to come up with an origin for every single member of the team. So he came up with this idea of mutants, people just born with powers, and then he figured, we could actually use that to represent race relations and reflect bigotry in a lot of the villains. Artistically, stuff like that will fall in your lap, where it's you're not necessarily angling for something, but then it's oh wow, that works really well. That's how that works.
And he didn't create the comic to represent the civil rights era. It was more of a case that there happened to be a metaphor at the time that could really make the narrative more relatable.
Exactly, but that doesn't disprove anything.
He even admits that any sort of portrayal in terms of Magneto being Malcolm and Professor X being like MLK was something that was done unconsciously.
Well, I actually literally just explained that. Even if it was unconscious, even if he didn't intend it, it's definitely there. Okay, let's see. Were you aware Professor X is more like MLK and Magneto is more like Malcolm X? Was that a conscious projection? I think it was certainly an unconscious feeling, yeah. And I never felt Magneto was 100% bad. I mean, there were reasons why he felt that way, but it was just up to Professor X to find some way to make him understand that he was on the wrong track. So what that's saying is essentially, I wasn't doing it intentionally, but subconsciously I was doing it that way. I feel like there's no way to avoid. It doesn't mean it's not there. artist intent is not everything, dude. This will be a future video. Artist intent is not everything. There's reads to art that are 100% valid that may not have artistic intent behind it.
He literally says that himself. He didn't try to do it. This makes sense, again, because Magneto in his first appearances was just a regular cutthroat sort of villain. Professor X and the X-Men sort of stood in his way.
It's almost like characters evolve. Isn't that weird?
He was a supremacist in a sense. He had intentions on ruling the world and the
Yes, I don't see how being a supremacist would have anything to do with race relations or anything. There's not like there's any supremacists involved with that.
lesser humans, not any sort of common goal with Professor X. Don't take my word for anything. Just go read the comics starting in 1963 up until really the damn 80s. To say that they were specifically created to be metaphors for the civil rights era is not only lazy, it's flat out and verifiably false.
I haven't seen anybody who said they were made specifically solely for that purpose, but you are full of shit if you don't think it inspired them at all. If you don't think that was in the back of Stan's mind when he wrote a lot of this shit. You are full of shit if you don't think that.
It wasn't until the 80s when Magneto became more of a villain that people sort of tried to sympathize with, and he had that past intertwined with Professor X. That was actually a bit of a retcon. So if the SJWs read comics, which they don't, they'd understand this. Chris Claremont's era of X-Men is way more analogous to that era, but even...
Well, absolutely. But are you saying that doesn't count? Chris Claremont's era on X-Men is a huge part of X-Men history, so you can't just discount it because he didn't create the fucking X-Men. That's a huge part of it.
That isn't specifically referenced to the civil rights era. Again, that's something that he clearly admits in interviews. He said that the metaphors he thought about were along the lines of Begin and the Israeli dichotomy, not the civil rights dichotomy. Again, something else he admitted in interviews. So factually speaking, not opinion, the X-Men were not created to represent the civil rights era by way of Stan Lee, and even the retcon of X and Magneto during Claremont's run, they weren't created as such. Now,
do you have a source? Nope. Okay. Stan Lee on the X-Men and More, The Lost Interview. My favorite villain was Magneto. And I love the X-Men, the idea of the X-Men being good mutants. Fuck's sake. Subscription? Fuck you, Rolling Stone. Alright, so Stan Lee used his platform to call out racism in the 60s and he never stopped. Bigotry and racism are among the deadliest social ills plaguing the world today, Stan Lee declared. I always felt X-Men, in a subtle way, often touched upon the subject of racism and inequality, and I believe that subject has come up in other titles too. Lee stole the Post Michael Kenna in 2016. But Lee added, I've never pounded hard on a subject which must be handled with care and intelligence. Like I said, part of the problem is if you don't pound it in, people like Eric July will misread you. Okay, yeah, so, I mean, essentially Stan Lee's point is, yes, it is about that. It's not, like, I never wanted to be, like, the forefront, but, like, to say it's not about that is a complete misrepresentation, because Lee never said it's not about that.
Now that this is out the way, it is no secret that the X-Men have had stories created around them that can absolutely be interpreted in multiple ways. That's what good writers are able to do. It's also not a secret that mutants have been disenfranchised at times. X-Men have been the enemy of not only the standard villains, but governments and the citizens among them, though not always. This conflict has made for some very classic storylines and became the identity of the X-Men. The problem is that the social justice advocates conflate this with social justice. This is why I think that
how does it not sync up with social justice? How do the X-Men dealing with bigotry not relate to social justice? This is why artists are getting less subtle with their messages, dude. Because when they do the subtle shit, you misread it and say, oh, well, they're not being direct with it, so they don't mean it. No, they still fucking mean it.
They are projecting when they say things like,
Whoa, they're projecting. You're a self-report, dude. That you're the one projecting. Stan Lee is saying, yes, while it was never, like, I never wanted it to be primary focus, yes, I always wanted that to be there in the background. That is literally what he said, and you're acting like, oh, he didn't want it to be like that. No, he wanted it to be like that. He just wanted it to be a background thing.
Everyone you dislike is a social justice warrior, according to you. No. I think that everything that you do like is something that you like to claim is related to social justice. Anybody with half a brain.
Yes, God, this is such a self-report. Because the truth is, anything he likes, he's trying to say, is not social justice. These guys self-report on themselves all the goddamn time. It's fucking ridiculous.
However, understands that heroes being disenfranchised, or aliens or types of people being enfranchised and made to be the enemies of others because they are different is not exclusive to social justice. In fact, I'd argue that just about every single mainstream comic book character has had some sort of conflict where they have people or types of people that are disliking them because of what they are. This isn't even exclusive to the X-Men or mutants. This is also a self-defeating point because Malcolm X was not an advocate of what you guys consider to be social justice. Ironically enough, he's one.
Yes, Malcolm X in his later years calmed down. I bet you could find some good social justice quotes from him there. But yeah, in the X-Men analogy, Malcolm X would not be the social justice warrior. Malcolm X, I mean, he's not even the anti-SJW. Well, you could... I don't even know if I like that, because he won't be an anti-SJW either. He's not the social justice middle, but he is like on the other extreme of the anti-SJWs. Like you're dealing with white supremacists, social justice, black supremacists, and that'd be more where he's at in his younger years.
One of the most misunderstood civil rights figures, as people just think that he was simply a more militant MLK. He wasn't as peaceful. He was willing to fight back. This is objectively false. I have a video going through some of Malcolm's ideals, and I'll link that in the description. But brother Malcolm X and the MLK were ideologically, fundamentally opposed. They weren't friends. They weren't even former friends like X and Magneto were after the retcons. And the social justice...
It doesn't have to be a perfect analogy, dude. You can't say, oh, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King weren't friends, therefore they're not analogous to Magneto and Professor X. That's not how that works.
Advocates that advocate diversity and inclusion. He wasn't for diversity and inclusion. He damn sure wasn't an integrationist like MLK was. The only similarity they shared is that they both recognized that black people were getting the crap end of the stick. Malcolm X, however, wasn't trying to do sit-ins or force himself into white businesses or championing the Civil Rights Act or anything like that. Nor was he trying to force white people to accept him. He, in fact, wanted blacks to be self-sufficient, and he knew that the Civil Rights Act was sort of a joke, and the politicians were just using black people to sort of advance their power. But he wasn't a supremacist either, like folks on the other side tried to paint him as, especially post-Mecca. This wasn't a case of two people with the same end game and different tactics. This was two individuals on...
Magneto and Professor X did not have the same end game and different tactics. They had very different end games. You're accusing people of not reading the comic books, but I don't think you've read the comic books either. They have very different end games as well. What you're describing would make them analogous, because essentially Magneto was a mutant supremacist, and Professor X is just advocating for social justice, and Magneto saying, no, we can't. That's not good enough. Humans are less than us. That was Magneto's point. Mutants are better from Magneto's perspective. Mutants should rule. Professor X is looking for even ground. Magneto's looking for mutant rulership.
On completely opposite ends in terms of endgame. So all in all, this is nothing but revisionist history by way of the social justice advocates who simply want to excuse the comic book hijack and bad writing. X-Men doesn't even prove your point, as they aren't on the nose like many writers are now. They had stories that were up for different interpretations.
Which is part of the problem, because now you're misinterpreting Stan Lee's words, you're misinterpreting the point of how he wrote, you're misinterpreting the fucking characters of the X-Men.
In terms of social reference and relevance, this is unlike Captain Marvel writers telling you straight up in the dialogue that they aren't losing reporters to 7-foot misogynists. that's actually in the dialogue. This is why you're trying to excuse your nonsense by referencing the X-Men as a self-detonating point, because those comics aren't written like the nonsense that we see today. So you're wrong on multiple fronts. Those X-Men comics could be metaphors for
aren't written by the Nazis we see today? Did I hear that? No.
Your nonsense by referencing the X-Men as a self-detonating point, because those comics aren't written like the nonsense that we see today. So you're wrong on multiple fronts.
Nonsense.
Those X-Men comics could be metaphors for a multitude of different things. Being disenfranchised is not exclusive to social justice. Neither is fighting against bigotry or having people dislike you because of who you are. It's not a difficult thing to do. You can relate to disenfranchised people or people being treated unfairly while also recognizing that social justice is stupid. And I'm not even...
But social justice, the main goal... Listen, man, SJWs can get annoying. They aren't nearly as annoying as anti-SJWs, not by a long shot. But they can get annoying, I'll give you that. But, like, the whole, like, idea behind social justice, I'm 100% behind. The idea of just everybody should be more or less on equal playing grounds. Not equality of outcome, but equality of opportunity is a very important thing that we should be striving for in our culture. And that's a big part of what social justice is. Are you against equality of opportunity?
I'm saying that Stan Lee hated social justice or was an anti-social justice advocate. I'm not even saying that the X-Men was anti-social justice. I'm not even saying that you couldn't.
I love it. He just spent this whole thing saying it's not these things, and now he's saying, oh, well, you know what, maybe it is. Oh my god, that's a hell of a conclusion, dude. Your conclusion is this whole video is bullshit. Cool. Thank you for being forward.
You can find similarities between movements or minority groups and X-Men in terms of their experience. Absolutely, you can find those similarities with conflicts such as racism. I'm saying that to refer to that and say that it was created to be representative of the civil rights era is simply not true. And to try to...
So he is arguing something that no one is arguing. He is arguing against the idea that the X-Men were solely created only to be for social justice issues. Something that nobody is literally arguing against. So yes, guess what? I agree with you. They weren't made just for that. But to do that is to miss the point. The argument is that their social justice issues play a key role in the X-Men storyline, which they definitely do, depending on the writer. The argument has never been that's the only thing they're about. The argument is it's a key part of them. Congratulations on arguing against something that nobody is arguing. Congratulations, you win against the argument that no one's making.
To pin the fact that mutants are minorities is proof that it's social justice. It's both intellectually lazy and dishonest.
What is it then? Tell us what it is then. What is it? The X-Men are minorities, and thus they deal with issues that minorities deal with. How is that not a social justice issue? Explain that one.
You, as a cornball social justice advocate, do not get to claim monopoly on having to deal with or being against things such as folks that are being disenfranchised or not being liked because of who they are. This is something that many individuals of different political and socio-political backgrounds can recognize or experience or relate to, including folks like myself, which sees social justice as the gimmick that it is in concept, because there is no such thing as social justice. There's only justice. These SJWs just want
only justice? What? You need to define your terms a bit, dude. All social justice is the idea that let's make everybody on equal playing ground. Let's put everybody on equal playing ground and see how they do. That's all it is. It's looking at how people are treated based on things that they can't even control, like skin color, like gender, like sexual preference. Let's treat people as if those things don't exist. Are we ever going to get to a point where we can completely ignore those aspects? I hope so, because that would be a nice place to be. That's a good start on building a better world.
Credit for something and excuses for continuing to ruin characters in books that they don't even read. Y'all aren't even inclusive, all that.
Well, your description of Magneto tells me you don't even read it either.
Kumbaya! Love everybody has an asterisk next to it that says, we only love you if you agree with us. As soon as folks like my black ass says something that is against the narrative, trust me, y'all are quick to sling out those racist connotations because, well, I don't behave like SJWs think black people should behave. You motherfuckers ain't special and you're raging hypocrites. And while
Wow. This has become about the X-Men to his complex. He's got a complex against these people, man.
that may be a little bit of my opinion, what isn't my opinion is that some of you are just flat out lying about the history of the X-Men.
No, you're lying about the history of the X-Men. You are misrepresenting the history of the X-Men to fit your own narrative. You're accusing others of doing exactly what you are doing, dude. Just have to point that out. Okay. What's next? Next, we have this Geeks and Gamers thing. This will be the last one. I'm getting a little burnt out.
You know, I truly did not want to make this video. As I said yesterday, you know, can we just have a day where we all kind of just, you know, stop fighting, stop arguing, and respect a great man? And obviously that's not reality when you live in a world with social justice warriors. I'm not monetizing this video, and yesterday I didn't think to demonetize my Stan Lee video until someone in the comments, you know, said, hey, this shouldn't be monetized, and they were right. And so I turned the ads off on that one, and this one will not have ads on it either, just because I don't want to make, like, this is not something I want to profit from, you know, but these people are crazy. They're disgusting human beings, and it's a mistake for me to say, hey, we should stop fighting for a day, because these people, they don't have a conscience. They don't have anything that centers them and tells them, hey, a legend just died that gave the world so much. Can we just put down our, you know, propaganda and our agenda for a day? And of course they can't do it. So here we are. AJ Plus, which is a left-wing news site, Al Jazeera, and I've seen them post nonsense like crazy, you know, anti-Trump shit and all this stuff. This is
crazy anti-Trump shit. You know what's some crazy anti-Trump shit? Anything Trump says is pretty anti-Trump. If you can listen to a Trump speech and think, oh yeah, I'm behind this guy, I don't know what to say to you, man. He's a lunatic.
Is how they decided to break the news that Stan Lee died. Breaking. Stan Lee has died at the age of 95. The famed comic book mogul was known for co-creating Spider-Man, X-Men, and other Marvel franchises. Oh, by the way, he was recently accused of sexual misconduct by multiple women. Pathetic. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I'll be blunt. I think the Daily Mail stuff is very suspect. I really, that's a grain of salt thing. I don't, like, Daily Mail reports anonymous sources, which is weird. A British tabloid reports anonymous sources accuse Stan Lee of sexual misconduct. I find it very suspect. Stan Lee says, no, that's not true. I kind of feel that's the end of it. That's kind of a stalemate in my opinion. Sus source, and the response is, I didn't do it. That's the end of it. The masseuse with the particular story, that sounds really bad. I think what we're seeing here is that Stan Lee is not a perfect person. He is also not the person these guys are representing. He is not the radical right-winger these guys are representing.
Absolutely pathetic. I mean, whatever sick fucking human being made this tweet, you are pathetic. You are a sad creature. Your existence in this world is the most meaningless.
God damn, Geeks and Gamers comes off really, like, psychotic in their videos.
Existence
I
we
don't
know of. This is absolutely unacceptable. Now, to the point, the fact that you see so many retweets and favorites here is really disturbing. But you know, people like the meme, I'm not going to get too mad about that. That you can look at this meme a couple of different ways. I would not make that meme, but whatever. There are people in the comments that are saying this is really disrespectful. And so I wanted to make a note that there are people in the comments saying this is disrespectful, blah, blah, blah. And of course, there's people going, oh, you think the last part is more disrespectful than what he's accused of doing? You don't even know what he did. So stop acting like you do. People get accused every day of stuff. I mean...
Okay, I'm going to be blunt. I'm not going to finish watching this. No. This guy is just going to get angry and cringy. So let's read a couple of Stanley's soapboxes. So 5 Stanley soapbox columns shut down racism in Marvel Comics. Stanley's soapbox. Do we have an issue? Welcome to Cookie. Let's try something different. This month, instead of me laying it on you with the usual panoply of, pitiless phrases, let's follow the old adage of a single picture being worth 1,000 words. And if this picture doesn't fill the bill, may for Bush forgive me. His name is Luke Cage, and being a hero for hire is his thing. We put it all together for you in a first sensational issue of our newest superhero mag, on sale right about now. I don't want you to think I'm hitting you with a lot of hard sell, but as one believer to another, even if it means foregoing Millie the model for this month, I don't care. Don't dare miss Luke Cage, hero for hire. He's really something else. From time to time, we receive letters from readers who wonder why there's so much moralizing in our mags. They take great pains to point out that comics are supposed to be escapist reading and nothing more. But somehow, I can't see it that way. It seems to me that a story without a message, however subliminal, is like a man without a soul. In fact, even the most escapist literature of all, old-time fairy tales and heroic legends, contain moral and philosophy points of view. At every college campus where I may speak, there is as much discussion of war and peace, civil rights, and the so-called youth rebellion as there is of our Marvel mags, per se. None of us lives in a vacuum. None of us is untouched by everyday events about us. Events which shape our stories just as they shape our lives. Sure, our tales can be called escapist, but just because something's for fun doesn't mean we have to blanket our brains while we read it. So yeah, this is literally a soapbox talking about how he's not against putting philosophy and morals in the story. For many years, we've been trying in our own bumbling way to illustrate that love is far greater force, a far greater power than hate. Now, we don't mean you're expected to go around like a... Wow, some of these words, are these like pureting Pollyanna, tossing posies at everyone who passes by. But we do want to make a point. Let's consider 3 men, Buddha, Christ, and Moses, men of peace whose insight and deeds have influenced countless millions throughout the ages, and whose presence still is felt in every corner of the earth. Buddha, Christ, and Moses, men of goodwill, men of tolerance, and especially men of love. Now consider the practitioners of hate, who have sullied the pages of history. Who still venerates their words? Where is homage still being paid to their memory? What banners are still being raised to their cause? The power of love, the power of hate, which is most truly enduring? When you tend to despair, let answers sustain you. That's actually a nice sentiment. I like that. Well, it happened again. There I was, making a soul-stirring speech at good old James Madison University in Harrisburg, Virginia recently, when one of the frantic Marvelites in the maddening, cheering crowd reminded me of a promise I'd forgotten a decade ago. He said that I'd promised in the late 60s to do a column entitled, "What is a Bigot?" And then he pointed an accusing finger and censoriously intonated, "And we're still waiting for it." Wow, with my laughable little memory, I can hardly remember what I said an hour ago. So I'm assuming the forthright lanekeeper was correct. And herewith and forthwith shall that so grievously oversight be summarily remedied. From where I sit, bigotry is one of the many stains upon the human escutcheon. Ooh, he's hitting me with words here, damn. Which must be eradicated before we can truthfully call ourselves civilized. It comes in many forms and shape. but it is most easily recognized in the form of cruel and mindless generalizations, such as when you hear some yo-yo say, all Italians are like this, or all Germans are like that, all women are so-and-so, and all blacks or Catholics or Jews or redheads or whatever are like this. Well, they may not be aware of it, but the turkeys that talk that way, and it's always done in a disparaging, put-down manner, of course, are bigots. Wow. We see a lot of that on the channel from these guys, don't we? Women. Shit like that. Yeah, they're always putting down women, stuff like that. Yeah, he's calling them out. Anyone with an IQ slightly above a certain cretin has to know that all of any type of human are never always the same. There are always good and bad people, and all categories in between, and you'll find them amongst all races, all religions, all sizes, shapes, and sexes. You want to dislike someone? Be my guest. It's a free country. But do it because he or she has personally given you a reason to feel that way. Not because of skin color or religion or foreign ancestry or the shape of their toenails or any other moronic, mixed up, mindless motive. Because if you justify your hatred by smearing everyone in any given group with the same brush, then you're being a bigot, Charlie. Okay, that's it. Never let it be said I don't keep my word when I promise to write about something, even if it happens to take 10 years to get around to it. Here's the last one. Let's lay it right on the line. Bigotry and racism are among the deadliest social ills plaguing the world today, but unlike a team of costume supervillains, they can't be halted with a punch in the snot or a zap from a ray gun. The only way to destroy them is to expose them, to reveal them for their insidious evils they are. The bigot is an unreasoning hater, one who hates blindly, fanatically, discriminately. If his hang-up is black men, he hates all black men. If a redhead once offended him, he hates all redheads. If some foreigner beat him to a job, he's down on all foreigners. He hates people he's never seen, people he's never known, with an equal intensity, with equal venom. Now, we're not trying to say it's unreasonable for one human being to bug another. But although anyone has the right to dislike another individual, it's totally irrational and patently insane to condemn an entire race, to despise an entire nation, to vilify an entire religion. Sooner or later, we must learn to judge each other on our own merits. Sooner or later, if a man is ever to be worthy of his destiny, we must fill our hearts with tolerance, for then, and only then, will we be truly worthy of the concept that man was created in the image of God, a God who calls us all his children. Those are pretty good, I have to say. I'll go ahead and play. I played it in another video, but I'll play that again. But yeah, I think, God, just doing the research for this, what we have seen that Stanley is a flawed man. As all people are. All people are flawed. We are not dealing with a perfect person. But I think to say he was against social justice or anything like that, to say that the X-Men had nothing to do with social justice just because they weren't solely created for that purpose, is a crass and idiotic misrepresentation of who this man is. I think we're dealing with a man who is largely fairly progressive, especially for the time he lived in the 60s. Not a flawless man by any means. But I think it's safe to say he's not racist, he's not sexist. We'll go ahead and play this last video clip from him. But yeah, Stanley this is turning into a different video than I thought it would be, and it's an interesting look at Stan Lee. I've learned a lot about Stan Lee doing this video, and I sincerely hope you learned a lot watching it.
Hi, heroes. This is Stan Lee coming at you. Want you to know, Marvel has always been and always will be a reflection of the world right outside our window. That world may change and evolve, but the one thing that will never change is the way we tell our stories of heroism. Those stories have room for everyone, regardless of their race, gender, religion, or color of their skin. The only things we don't have room for are hatred, intolerance, and bigotry. That man next to you, he's your brother. That woman over there, she's your sister. And that kid walking by, hey, who knows? He may have the proportionate strength of a spider. We're all part of one big family, the human family, and we all come together in the body of Marvel. And you're part of that family. You're part of the Marvel universe that moves ever upward and onward to greater glory. In other words, Excelsior!
They think order and chaos are somehow opposites and try to control what won't be.
Do you enjoy pain?
Pain don't hurt.